no matter where they lie. My goal is never to be politically correct. I don't care about being politically correct. I want to just be correct because I know that a lot of times when we're politically correct, we're just incorrect. So when I first started my career, I pretty much kind of knew that Americanized systems aren't built for people like myself. You know, if I was a basketball player or a rapper or a comedian, there'd be plenty of spaces for me, but there's no space built out for intelligent Black people who radically seek solutions that are beneficial to Black people and Black people first, and primarily to the Black community. So one of the things I knew from the very beginning was that I could not follow a roadmap that was already like in existence. I could not follow any roadmap of anybody that had already been set. The closest thing I could find to what I was trying to do was Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, who's somebody that every Black child in America needs to learn about. Marcus Garvey. It is your job to teach your kids about Marcus Garvey. White people are never going to teach your kids about Marcus Garvey. That's just a fact, and you have to accept it. They don't love you enough to teach your kids about Marcus Garvey because that would unleash a whole lot of Blackness and Black power that they can't really handle. It would literally allow us to really compete at a level that would frighten most people. So anyway, so I looked up to people I admired. I admired Michael Eric Dyson, Cornel West, Julianne Malveaux, and I even looked up to people like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, things like that. Now, I don't agree with all these people politically at this point because my politics have evolved since then, but I give them credit for what they accomplished. And one thing I noticed was I said, okay, the problem with being, say, a Michael Eric Dyson or Cornel West type of scholar is that the minute you say something that white America doesn't like, they can cancel you, right? Cancel culture has been in existence long before the internet. There was always the ability to cancel somebody, and it was easier to cancel somebody before the internet than it was after the internet. You know, a lot of people think that, you know, think about this. They can't really cancel certain people with the internet. They claim to cancel them, but they've been trying to cancel Elon Musk since forever. And he's literally still now at this point, the richest man on earth. So you can't cancel him. When I worked with Ice Cube on, challenging the Biden and Trump administrations to do more for Black people, they were trying to cancel Ice Cube. They couldn't cancel him. Ice Cube's still making, I don't know how many millions of dollars he made. I never asked him, but I'm sure he's making insane amounts of money. And he also bought $20,000 worth of Claude Anderson books, and we gave them away, and I bought 20,000, and we did kind of a matching thing. I said, if you put up 20,000, I'll put up 20,000. Let's just support this brother because he deserves our support. These are the institutions we have to support. So my point is to say that the cancel culture was much more effective before the internet than it is now. Well, why do I bring that up? Well, because I remember thinking, okay, so if Cornel West or Dyson were to really say something that really ruffled the feathers of white America, ruffled the feathers of white liberals, they would have no base. They would get canceled. Their sources of income would be canceled one by one. That university position would be taken away. That book deal that they have with Simon & Schuster will be taken away. Whoever it is, television deals will be taken away. Radio deals, radio shows will be taken away. Speaking engagements will be taken away. Those are the 4 or 5 ways that most public scholars made their money. I said, we're going to have to build this all from scratch. We can't go into the existing system. There is no place for someone like me. I already know I'm going to get fired at some point from every damn job I ever get because my ideas are so radical that people aren't going to understand them. They'll understand them in about 50 years. And so what we did was we created our own everything. Everything we did was from scratch. We built our own, and it was hard. It was much harder than if somebody had come along and just gave us a silver spoon. We built our own speakers bureaus called Great Black Speakers. My brother ended up representing hundreds of Black speakers through the years. When I wanted to teach classes, we created the Black Business School. And I came to Boston this week to study, to hang out with my friend D1, who's a great rapper. And I also studied the history of Harvard University because I was like, okay, how do you build a Black-owned Harvard? Well, it takes 200 or 300 years to do it. So you have to endow that, right? So I'm going to give 80% of my wealth to the Black Business School so that in 200 years, we're going to have a Black version of a Harvard, right? Among many. And then the other thing was when it came to publishing a book, I knew that it was going to be really hard for me to get book deals. And so what we did was we started self-publishing way back in 2004, 2005, when it was really hard to self-publish. And we did it badly. It was very difficult to do. Now self-publishing has become more mainstream. It's become easier to do. And it's a much better route for making money than getting a book deal. In fact, book deals are a lot like record deals, where and one thing D1 and I have that I respect about him that I love is D1 is the only rapper I know who's walked away from major record deals from major labels. Lil Wayne and Drake's record label, Cash Money Records, offered to sign D1, and he said no, thank you. Right. And why is that? Well, because he understands business. He understands how to monetize his craft and monetize his brand and all these other things. So basically, that was the way it kind of came across with self-publishing. Was I said these book deals are stupid. They promise that they're going to promote you and all these other things, and they never do. And you end up just getting shelved. I remember being listed with a speakers bureau, and because I wasn't as much of a mainstream face as, say, a Michael Eric Dyson, what they did was they booked Dyson for everything. And then they would give me like whatever scraps were left over, but there weren't that many scraps left over. It's like, a couple engagements a year. But when we created our own Black-owned speakers bureau, it was very easy to go and do speeches and all this other stuff. The last important component that I thought about was media. I realized that whenever a Black person has ideas that don't fit into white supremacist constructs of what Black liberation is supposed to look like, right? It's kind of, I consider it almost to be like contained opposition, right? Like, it's like, okay, you can be radically Black as long as you do it with our permission and within our confines. Like, as long as you're saying Black Lives Matter because we're saying Black Lives Matter on CNN, or we're mad about George Floyd, so you can be mad about George Floyd too, but you can't talk about the little girl who just got shot in the South Side of Chicago because that doesn't fit the narrative, right, that we're trying to promote right now. So that what happens is that when you don't fit that box, you get deplatformed. They take away your show or whatever. So I said, okay, well, it's gonna be hard, but we got to build our own platform. We have to find our own independent way to distribute our ideas to the public. So one of the things that I did, just gives you insights in terms of how I created my career. To this day, I've never gotten a book deal. I have never had a TV deal. I've never had a radio deal. I've never had. I was signed with a couple speakers bureaus. Didn't really do much. Most of my speeches came through great Black speakers, and I probably have sold by now, I'm going to guess 100,000 books, right? And a lot of that was by building the platform sort of one by one, person by person. Literally, I started working for free at AOL Black Voices. A lot of people want to work for free. I don't know why they don't do it, because it's a great way to get your foot in the door. Because I figured if I don't invest in myself, then why would anybody else want to invest in me if I'm not even willing to invest in me? So I started I started writing articles for free for AOL Black Voices. That allowed me to build an email list, and it started off with 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 10,000 people. Then eventually got to 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, right? So ultimately, when it comes to like self-publishing, or making money from books, I encourage you to publish it on your own. I think Amazon has a great, there's others out there, I'm sure, but Amazon is I think the best way to go. And by the way, my book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, and it's available on Amazon. It's gotten 4.8 stars out of 5 in terms of all the reviews. So I think you're really going to like it. And also, I'm going to do a deep dive training on the book. I literally have a separate document I've created that's literally going to be 100 pages that goes through all of the theories in this book. And these are all theories you're never going to find in other financial books, because every single paradigm, model, theory, et cetera, that I put together is designed specifically to solve the problem of Black wealth in America and beyond, because you have a lot of unique issues and unique opportunities that don't exist for other groups, right? You have challenges that don't exist for immigrants, or white folks don't understand certain things. And so what has to happen is your business models have to evolve, and also your thinking has to evolve. You can't sort of, when we talk about things like looking for jobs, I remember when Dame Dash went on The Breakfast Club and gave a really popular interview about being a boss. Everybody should be a boss. If you're not a boss, then something's wrong with you, blah, blah, right? And so I got a call from the host, Charlemagne, and he said, I need you to come on and talk about what Dame said and bring it down to earth, because now people are just running and quitting their jobs because Dame got them all pumped up and everything else. They need to have a plan. He said, if white people can go look for jobs, why can't Black people? So what I told Charlemagne was, I said, okay, I'll come on and I'll talk about it. And I think that it does need to be contextualized. I said, but I'm not going to undermine what he said, because I really agree with the idea of kind of challenging people, especially the men, but also women as well, just all of us, to understand what it means to not be a white supremacist, to just sort of think highly enough of yourselves to understand that you can do whatever they can do. Whatever they built, you can build. It just takes more time. It just takes more patience, because they didn't build the NFL into a $100 billion entity overnight. But the Chicago Bears were purchased a couple of generations ago for $500. The Green Bay Packers were purchased for $50. So, you have to have, but the problem is you have to have enough vision. You have to have the vision in 1923 to see what you can have in 2023. So you have to have the vision in 2023 to see what you can have in 2123. So basically, I remember the other thing I said was, the other thing that I can't say I agree with 100% is that just because white people do it, that we should be doing it. I said, number one, white people and what they do is not the gold standard for Black people. Again, that's another white supremacist idea, in my opinion. This idea that somehow when we do things just like they do, that we're going to be equal to them, or that our goal should be equal to them, or that our goal should be to be similar to them. I don't think that's true. I think you have to be similar to your best self, whatever that looks like. And you can't sort of go following around somebody and saying, I want to be like you. That's when I know I've made it, is when I'm exactly like you. Well, if I'm always trying to be like you, I'll never be as good at being you as you are at being you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if my goal is to always match whatever and become exactly what you are, then you're always going to be better than me. You're always going to be superior to me, because you're always going to be better at being you than I'll ever be. Right. So basically I said, yeah, I know white people go and they look for jobs, and we as Black people, we deserve jobs too, but we're not white. You're not white. Those corporations don't belong to you. They built, the white people mostly built these institutions for themselves. When you read the book, How the Jews Invented Hollywood, which is a fascinating book about the power of the Jewish community in terms of institution building, I have complete admiration for that. They built Hollywood for themselves. They said that. They said, we're building something for our children and grandchildren, so that our children and grandchildren don't have to be marginalized, so they don't have to go beg for jobs, so they don't have to constantly feel like they're not wanted. So the question I ask you is, do you love your children and your grandchildren enough to make that same sacrifice so that they don't have to beg for jobs, they don't have to be marginalized, they don't have to be left out? Because so ultimately, this really comes down to simple ideas like self-esteem, believing that you're as good as the next person, and love. Do you love yourself? You're asking the whole world to love you, but do you even love you? Because people that love themselves can say, you know what, it's a lot harder, but I think I'm going to create something that has my name on it. Generational wealth is the closest thing you'll ever get to immortality. I'm going to build a building and put my family's name on it, because I love my family, and I love my family as much as I love your family. So when you tell me that my job is to go seek out jobs to go and build up an institution with your family's name on it, I'm going to stop and say, yeah, I might do that for a little while, as long as I need to, but eventually I'm going to go and pour my energy into an institution that has my family's name on it. So ultimately, that's what this book is about. Is basically understanding what it looks like to build an equal community. And so little things like self-publishing was part of my journey in terms of getting there and realizing, okay, ain't nobody gonna help me do none of this. There's not a white institution on the planet that's gonna help me undermine white supremacy in the way that I believe I can undermine white supremacy. And I can honestly tell you that I know it works, because I do not, every time I talk to you, everything that I do, 99.9% of what I do on a daily basis, I don't have to ask for anybody's permission. I literally am unfit for slavery. My wife was joking. She said we were joking. We were walking through the Harvard campus, and she said I would love to teach here. She said, Boyce, if they offered us jobs here, would you want to come teach here? I said no. I wouldn't. I got more important work to do. I got to go build the Black Business School. And she said, yeah, Boyce, you wouldn't do so well working for anybody else. And I said, yeah, I'm not fit for slavery. And so I encourage you, make sure your kids aren't fit for slavery. And the way you make sure they're not fit for slavery is you make sure they have an endowment. You make sure that they have some assets to work with, and then the ability to manage those assets. I shared a short video earlier today about little things like how having a trust can help you avoid paying taxes on your inheritance, or cut your tax bill significantly. Because one thing rich people do is they do that strategy I mentioned to you guys called buy, borrow, and die. Well, they accumulate assets. That's how they become rich people. The only difference between rich people and poor people is that rich people have more stuff. right? And the other thing too is I want you to understand that there's valuable stuff that's not just financial stuff. Financial stuff is one type of value, but there's other ways to be rich besides money. So never forget that. But the way they become rich is they buy a whole bunch of stuff, and then they never sell their stuff. They just hold on to it, and when they need money, they will borrow against their stuff. Like when Elon Musk wanted to buy Twitter, he borrowed against his ownership stake in Tesla. He got a margin loan against his ownership stake in Tesla and other companies. And then they die. And then after they die, what happens is that their kids get to hit the reset button. They get to do sort of like the reparations debate. You know how a lot of white folks don't want to pay reparations because they're like, well, wait a minute, I didn't steal your money. I didn't do this. But then we turn and we say, but yeah, but you inherited our money. Your great grandparents stole it and passed it down to you. Now you own, this big chunk of real estate in central Manhattan that really was taken from us, right? But what happens is they hit the reset button. They're like, yeah, well, you know what? In every generation, the past is the past, and we just start over, equal, as if nothing happened, as if the last 400 years never took place. So basically, that's kind of what also happens with estate planning. Is that rich people understand how to hit the reset button so that your kids don't have to go back and pay taxes on the money that you owe. They don't, you owe the taxes, but you're dead. They can't go to heaven and get that money from you. So they pretty much just let your kids slide. And it's a beautiful, it's sad. It's not appropriate, right? It's not fair. But the biggest thing to understand about capitalism is about as unfair as you ever gonna get. The silliest thing you could ever be is a person who is constantly talking about fairness in a capitalist society. I'm not saying that you don't deserve it. I'm not saying that you're not correct. I'm just saying that if you understand capitalism the way I understand it, you will know that capitalism ain't got nothing to do with fairness. Capitalism is survival of the fittest. Capitalism is the strong exploiting the weak. Capitalism is the educated taking advantage of the uneducated. Capitalism is also the disciplined taking advantage of the undisciplined. Right. So it's not just about sort of the rich guy beating up on the poor guy. It's also the disciplined guy taking advantage of the undisciplined guy. So if you are undisciplined and you think short term and you're very what they call this myopic. Myopic means short sighted. You can only think about next week. You're only looking at the here and now. That's all you see. And then you're dealing with somebody who's playing where you're playing checkers and then somebody else is playing chess. They're going to destroy you every single time. So it's not just, so don't fall for this myth also that it's just about how much money you were born with or it's just racism and that's all it is. No, if you give me a disciplined kid from the hood, I'm talking about the hoodiest hood you can possibly find, who's born in complete abject poverty with nothing in his pocket on the day he's born. If he's disciplined and then you give him some basic financial training, he's going to absolutely kill it. By the time he's 30 years old, he will have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars in his bank account. Why? Well, because it's about how he approaches everything in life. I'll give you an example. My wife and I, this is a real life example. My wife and I were talking about this as we were jogging through Boston. In Boston, this trip to Boston was kind of fun. I'm going to go to LA for the Black Wealth Boot Camp right after this. So if you come to LA, I'll see you there. It's March 10th, by the way. If you want to join us, just go to boycewatkins.com. And we were running through Boston and we were talking, and she made a joke. She said, I feel kind of bad because there are a lot of really good therapists that nobody knows about. And people, and one of my friends said, yeah, you're lucky you married Dr. Boyce Watkins because now a lot of people know about you because you're married to him. And she said, so I can't take any credit for it because it's because I'm married to you. And I said, okay, I get that. I do agree that, being married to a man that already has a pre-established platform can be extremely beneficial to your career, right? I've helped a lot of people kind of launch and get their stuff off the ground, and I love that contribution. I said, however, here's what you got to understand about opportunities. I want y'all to pay attention to this. I just listened to my wife and I said, baby, what does the word poor stand for? Does anybody know? If you've been listening to me in class, you know what the word poor stands for. What does poor? Poor is an acronym. What does poor stand for? Can anybody type in the chat? Does anybody know? I'm gonna give you a second to answer. There we go. Thank you, Ilhaj. Passing over opportunities repeatedly. Passing over opportunities repeatedly, right? So I said, you know what, babe? You are a gorgeous woman. I'm very honored to be married to a beautiful, intelligent Black woman. I said, but, you know, do you really think that you're the only woman that could have chose me as her husband, could have chose me as her boyfriend, husband, whatever? I said, no, you're not. There are other women that met me and maybe they thought I was square or they wanted to date a certain kind of guy. You met me when I was in graduate school and I was studying hard, trying to become somebody. And I met you in the library and I saw you were getting hit on by guys who were athletes and thugs and the cool guys, but you weren't interested in that. You were interested in the smart guy because your father is a professor. I said, so remember, you do have benefits of being married to me, but but you chose to marry me, right? So you had so you had an opportunity that other people might have had. There are lots of people who have opportunities to choose a partner that can elevate their lifestyle. But how many times do you see somebody choosing a partner that is the absolute worst for them, right? Somebody that's going to destroy their life as opposed to build it. Somebody that's going to abandon their child and disrespect everything that they're trying to accomplish, right? So a lot of us get the same opportunities, but we pass those opportunities over repeatedly. And I said, so it's not just the opportunities you get, because that's the simple-minded myth. The simple-minded myth is, well, he's doing better because he was more blessed than you and he got more opportunities than you got. I believe that if you live long enough, everybody gets an opportunity to do something. Every time you wake up in the morning, you have an opportunity to read a book. You have an opportunity to exercise. You have an opportunity to go to a class. You have an opportunity to pick up a new skill. Opportunities are kind of everywhere, right? But the question is, are you maximizing those opportunities? Are you grabbing them or are you walking by them? And so that word POUR, the acronym, passing over opportunities repeatedly, I think is appropriate to understand, because there are many people who stay poor because every opportunity they get, they walk away from it. Why? Well, it's about attitude. That's the other thing I told her. I said, look, you could have even been my wife. And I offered you, I told you the same thing I've told a bunch of other people. When I see a skill or a talent, I'm good at identifying what does well in terms of content creation and whatever, right? So I told you the same thing I told a lot of people. I said, you're a really good therapist. I bet you that a lot of people would want to hear some of the things that you're sharing, because this is really powerful stuff. And you should start an Instagram and get online and do this. Do you know how many times I've told that to other people and they didn't do anything with it? They literally did nothing. I said, so you executed, like you actually, everything I said, you implemented it. And I'm not sitting here trying to brag or anything, but I know this stuff very well. And the best thing you could have done was taken my advice, which you did. And now you've made hundreds of thousands of dollars and you built your whole practice and all these other things, right? So I told her, I said, there are other people where I had the same conversation and they would be like, oh, okay, yeah. And then they didn't have the discipline to follow through, or they just didn't execute. Right. So that was another piece, maximizing the opportunities. Right. So seeing the opportunities, taking advantage of them, and then maximizing. The third element of opportunity that I really shared this with my wife the other day. So this idea doesn't sound totally refined. It's because I was processing it as I was talking to her about it, but I want to share it with you because I think it's beneficial to understand the nature of investing and what it really looks like to make good investments all across your life. I said, the third thing is, I said, people who are really just on their stuff, who are just on it all the time and killing it and pushing and going and prepared and skilled, people like that, they just tend to create opportunities. They literally are become what I almost call them like they're like economic gods, because God, the strength of God is that the God in you has the ability to manifest. Like the God in me allows me to say, you know what, I'm going to be here by a year from now. And if my mind is deep enough and strong enough, I can create that reality that I've built in my head, right? Or if I'm an executor and I say, I'm going to build a building that's going to be this big and this tall, I can manifest that, right? So that's that godlike power, right? So I told her, I said, people that really execute, that are really on top of their game, that are optimistic and trying to be intelligent and working their butts off, opportunities just fall in their lap. I said, I met a young lady one time who impressed me so much from the conversation we had that I offered her a job that did not even exist. It was not as if she was presented an opportunity that was available for everybody. No, she created that opportunity because she showed up so ready, so intelligent, so prepared that I said, gosh, I gotta open the door for her because this person, this is too good to pass up. So what my point is to say that people, when they say you can make your own luck, that really is true. And I think it's important for us to understand this as Black people, because I hate the idea that we get so inundated with this idea that luck is this external variable that you have no control over. It does not benefit you ever for somebody to convince you that you have no control over the outcomes of your life. Um, Even when we talk about how health is wealth, I shared what I found in some research about why men die younger than women and why Black men die younger than everybody. And this article that was written by a mainstream publication, they talked about why men die younger than women. And it's the stuff that kind of made sense to me. Like men, we just kind of like marriage is hard, right? Don't get me wrong. Like when my friends say, marriage, I don't know if I can do that. I get it. Like marriage can be very difficult. But I said, but really, when you get about 45 or 50, at least marriage will kind of keep you alive, because when men are single, we kind of do stuff that's just not healthy. We'll eat pizza every day. A lot of men will end up sleeping around, getting all kinds of diseases and getting in bad situations. We do dangerous jobs, construction worker, coal miner, we ride motorcycles, we do things that put us in harm's way. So we die from accidents. And then also think about this. How many of y'all know men who just won't go to the doctor? Like literally won't want to, and health is an important conversation to talk about when you talk about investing, because they say health is wealth, but your health is more important than your wealth, because if you don't take care of your health, then all your wealth will disappear, because you're going to give it all to the pharmaceutical companies and to the hospitals and to the healthcare industry, trying to keep yourself alive, right? So a lot of us know men. Give me a yes if you know this, like men that just won't go to the doctor, and then if they go to the doctor, they won't actually do what the doctor tells them to do, right? It's hard because I guess as men, we think we're invincible and we feel like we just, like, oh yeah, I got diabetes, but that's just a state of mind. Like I'm gonna keep eating my fried chicken. And then next thing you know, the poor guy's dead because he doesn't understand, like you're not 25 years old anymore. You can't just sort of will your way through high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever. You're going to die, right? So these are the reasons why they said men die younger than women. But here's what's interesting. So when they got to the point where they talked about Black men, they said Black men die earlier than everybody else. Here's what they said. They said Black men die younger because they don't have access to quality health care, because they're dealing with the stress of racism, and something else they said, right? They had to do, it was racism, right? And I know racism exists. I've been a Black man my whole life. Racism's real, right? It's not the boogeyman. It's there. But I said, it's interesting to me how every single solution they provided didn't depend on the Black man making his own choice about whether he wants to live or die. None of the solutions they offered came down to Black men deciding that they want to live longer. It actually almost always came down to white people deciding to treat Black men better. Do you get the subtle? This is a very nuanced point, but it's very important to understand this. Do you understand the difference? That literally they were basically saying that Black men will live longer if we decide they're going to live longer. And while it might make sense on the surface, and a lot of people are going to clap when they hear that, that's a very damning assessment of your ability as a man to manifest your own reality. You at that point, based on their explanation as a Black man, you can't decide what your reality is going to be. They're going to decide what your reality is going to be. And this is one of the reasons why I end up rejecting a lot of liberal ideas and a lot of conservative ideas. I don't want to be a Republican. I don't want to be a Democrat, because I want to just have some say in what my life is going to be. Because let me tell you this, when I married my wife, some of y'all saw me lose weight. I started pumping iron. I got much stronger. I did some things that created a healthier lifestyle. And not one single time did any of that come down to whether or not white people decided to be nicer to me or teach me how to take care of myself. I always knew how to run 3 miles every couple of days. I always knew how to do it. I just chose not to do it, right? But when I chose to do it, well, guess what? I started losing weight. I started getting in better shape. So ultimately, I would encourage you to just realize that when you're talking about the wealth building, all the things we talk about every single week, it's extremely important for you not to get not to follow the rhetoric that's out there, because most of the systematic rhetoric that's out there is designed to keep you exactly where you are right now. So that means if you're born rich, the system is designed to keep you rich. If you're born poor, the system is designed to keep you poor. So in order for you to go from poor to rich, you're going to have to get off the poor ramp, get off the poverty track, and go to the success track, go to the wealth track, which means creating your own track. And nearly everything I've had to do as a public intellectual, whatever I am, I've had to create my own track. I've had to literally independently assess every move and say, does this make sense? And if it didn't make sense, I had to have the courage to say, nah, I'm not doing that. But if it does make sense, I had to have the courage to say, I'm going to go do it. I don't care what anybody else says. Right. So that's my 2 cents. That was my thought for today. And I hope that that's helpful in terms of how you shape your investing and how you also shape your sharing of these ideas with your children. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk in a minute about car notes. We're going to talk about car notes and why car notes are economically devastating and will ruin you financially. Car notes and student loans. And also, some of you were asking earlier, yeah, if you want to come to the Black Wealth Bootcamp in Los Angeles this weekend, March 10th and 11th, it'll be 2 straight days. And we're going to spend 2 days doing a deep dive on my book. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. And you can get a copy on Amazon, or you can go to boycewatkins.com. And also at boycewatkins.com, you can sign up for the boot camp. But also there is a list of AI stocks that I like. I picked, I think, 9 AI stocks that I plan to invest in that I think are going to allow you to take advantage of the AI boom. Once the market recovers, and in fact, the market, I think, is down a little bit today, which is a great opportunity for you. So what happens is when the market goes down, you have an opportunity to buy something that's worth this much for this much, right? Because the market tends to be very emotional, and it can overreact and go down further than it needs to, but then it comes to its senses and then the stock price goes back up. So this is a great way to build that long-term generational wealth. And also on boycewatkins.com is the $5 a day investing plan. I encourage everybody to do that. Because that's going to make a difference for your kids. The only thing I ask you to do, I ask you to do 2 things in the plan. Invest consistently, like don't change, like just set it on autopilot. And 2, don't ever sell those stocks. Those are not your stocks. Those belong to your children. Don't sell them until your child is 25 to 30 years old. And if you allow it to grow, then your child's rich. Your child never has to work for anybody ever again. It is very easy, extremely easy, for us to have a very basic, simple plan that can be executed by anybody who's listening, so that your children will never, ever, 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 ever have to work for anybody. Somebody with $250,000 in the bank or $180,000 in the bank doesn't have to work, to go make $4,000 a month to go pay their landlord. They own the house. They own assets. They're able to make the moves. They can go live in Paris. So give that to your kids, and they're going to appreciate you for that. Like, they're going to honor you for that. So I encourage you to think that way, but you got to do it ahead of time. You sort of do it after the fact. Like, you can't do fast money. Like, how do I get rich tomorrow? That doesn't work very well. You have to sort of make these plans 20 years in advance. So the question I'd ask you before we move on to car notes is, what is your 20-year plan? Okay. All right. So let me let's hop in. Let's talk about car notes. And somebody asked, are we going through all the questions? We should, and I will. I'm going to go through. Yeah, I'm going to go through that now as we speak. Sorry, I'm having to respond to somebody. Okay, all right. So it's kind of funny. I'm laughing because as I was looking at my phone to send a text, I saw something where Kanye West, I guess, did a little video where he was upset because his daughter did a TikTok that kind of bothered him. I think the TikToks are only going to get worse over time because who their mother is. Their mother kind of how their mother made their money, and it makes me very sad. It makes me think about even the wealth conversation, because when Kanye and I talked, we talked a lot about wealth and money and all that. And one of the things that I did tell him, because I just believe in being honest, is I said, I don't think I ever would have married a Kardashian, because I know what that would do to you spiritually and psychologically. And it's kind of, and I said, I like your mother, Donda, because that reminds me of the Black woman I married. Like, I married a woman who identifies with Donda because Donda is also a Black woman who is a professor that lives in Chicago, right? My wife is a professor that lives in Chicago. I said, so I identify more with your mother than I identify with the Kardashian. I would rather throw myself off a bridge than marry Kim Kardashian, because I believe that you're creating the kinds of problems that you're having right now, because the Kardashians are very, very good at making their money in a specific way. And if you're okay with that, then that's fine. But if you're not okay with that, then I don't know if that's the lifestyle that you should choose, right? So that kind of came to mind. And I think it's in terms of translating that to this conversation on wealth. You got to make sure your kids understand that who you marry really matters. You know, the value systems of that person, that's going to all be inherited by your kids. So you marry a stripper, well, your kid's going to think, you know, there's a good chance they may think it's okay to be a stripper, you know. Or you marry a thug, then your son may think it's okay to be a thug. You got John Morant, one of the greatest players in the NBA right now, literally throwing away $1 billion. He's throwing away $1 billion because he somehow has embraced this weird thug culture that it makes absolutely no sense. He's pulling out guns on Instagram and everything else, and that team's going to eventually cut him. They're not going to. They've suspended him indefinitely. It takes a lot for an NBA team to indefinitely suspend a player they just gave a $200 million contract to. There's a lot of conversations that have to happen. They think about this. They have to decide that they're willing to give away a $200 million asset. And so whatever he's doing, it's bothering them that much, to the point where don't be surprised if he ends up just out of the NBA altogether. It's not just your talent that makes the difference. It's actually what kind of a professional you are. He's not being very professional right now. So let's talk about car notes and why car notes are terrible for your bank account. So what I'm going to do is kind of just reference it in general. First thing about car notes that's really bad is that car notes are a depreciating asset. A lot of you already know that car notes are not going to go up in value. Cars don't go up in value; they go down in value. As soon as you drive it off the lot, the price goes down. Right now, cars have become extremely expensive. What happened was during the pandemic, companies realized that there was a massive amount of money they could make from used cars. And so what they did was, after the pandemic ended and the supply chain issues went away, they just said, well, let's just keep the price high because people were buying it at the higher price. We had bigger margins. We're going to just stay that way. So people were discovering new business models during the pandemic that they didn't have before. Even in the hotel that I'm staying in, one guy told me that there were a lot of services and amenities they offered before the pandemic that they got rid of during the pandemic. But after the pandemic was over, they said, well, you know what? We realize our customers don't care if we actually clean their room every day. So we're only going to bring the maids in, you know, by request or a couple of times a week. So car dealerships have learned that restricting the supply of cars allows them to extract more money out of you. So now you're getting to the point where there are lots of people that have new car notes. I think 15, 20%, I want to say 13 to 15%, something like that, of new car notes are over $1,000 a month. And the average new car note, if I'm not mistaken, is about $700 and something a month. And so cars being a depreciating asset is literally a huge waste of money. If you want to know how I buy my cars, my wife and I we do drive luxury cars. So I want you to understand, like nice, there's nothing wrong with getting a nice car. If you want to ride in something nice, then do that. There's no judgment here. But so we buy luxury cars, but we never buy new luxury cars. When I buy a car, what I do is I find the dream car that I want, and then I go back 3 years. So it's 2023, I'm going to buy a car now. It's not going to be a 2023. It'll probably be like a 2020 or 2019. Why? Well, because they take good care of them. And the last car I bought was a really nice Infiniti, and it was 3 years old. And literally by buying a car that was 3 years older, it took, I think, $30,000 off the price. It was an $85,000 car. The price dropped to like a little more than 50 because we went back 3 years in time and got a car that made us just as happy as the brand new car would have made. So just because you have the money doesn't mean you have to waste it. New cars are just not a good investment. Maybe an exception is if you really want that electric vehicle. I don't know if there are a lot of good used electric vehicles or if that same rule would apply, but I would encourage you to kind of look into that. The other thing about new cars or about cars is that the length of the loan causes you to end up paying a ton of interest. I remember when I was in college and I had this really terrible girlfriend. She was really mean to me, but her mother was really nice, and I liked her mother a lot. And so I went to her with her mother to buy a car. And her mother, she was in that, that stereotype of the strong black woman. She was a strong black woman, and I personally think that's a compliment. I think, like my grandma was strong, my mom was strong, and my wife is strong. I think strength is a good thing, right? And I'm a strong black man. Ain't nothing wrong with being strong, but she was real strong, and she went in there and negotiated with this man, and the man was trying to get her to go up in terms of the amount that she'd be willing to pay every month. Like it was, I think that he offered her a deal where she was going to pay 130 a month, and she said, no, I only want to pay 110. And it was something like that, right? And they were stuck in the stalemate over like $20 a month. And the man was getting frustrated and trying to, him and Han push her to go up a little bit. Like, and everybody's like, dang, wow, she's really not budging. And then he comes back in and he says, guess what? Miss Smith. I'm gonna say Miss Smith because I won't give her last name because I want to know I'm talking about her on the internet. I said, so they said, guess what, Miss Smith? We finally found a way to give you the car at the price that you want. And she said, really? And they said, yeah. And so I stopped, because I was a finance student at the time. I was an undergrad, and I said, okay, what did you change? And did you change the price of the car? Like, before it was let's say $20,000 car. Is it still a $20,000 car? Or did you make it a $19,000 car? And they said, no, the price is the same. I said, okay, so that means that you had to change one of the variables. I said, did you change the interest rate? Is she being charged a lower interest rate? No, no, no. Oh, I get it. You changed the amount of time on the loan, because that's the other variable that only other variable you can change that's going to make the payment amount go down, right? You had to change the time. So effectively, what I told her was, I said, they're charging you the exact same amount. You're just going to pay more interest because you're going to be paying for, 6 years instead of 5 years. So a lot of car loans are being stretched out because a lot of people buy cars based solely on the monthly payment they can maintain. And the thing that you want to be careful about is when you get caught in the fixed monthly payment culture, what you're doing is you're creating wealth for the people that own the business, but in order to create wealth for them, you're taking wealth from yourself. Because here's the thing: if you go through your whole life and you're paying monthly rent and a monthly car note and monthly subscriptions for this, and this, it's okay to do that for some things. I have a lot of monthly things that I pay as well, but if you do that too much, then that ends up chipping away at your wealth. So a lot of these car notes are very long deals that end up extracting tons and tons of money from you and your family over time. And the cars are getting more expensive, and it's just getting bad. Also, there's an issue with interest rates going up. With interest rates going higher, obviously that's causing payments to go higher. The other piece is that when you're talking about affordability, the way I would kind of look at purchasing a car is to sort of think of it as doing what you want to do, but just understanding what the trade-offs are, right? I don't believe in telling people to get cheap cars because that would make me a hypocrite. I don't buy cheap cars. I would look at it as saying that about priorities, right? So the top priority for you as a wealth builder, everybody here is a wealth builder, I assume that's why you're here. Your top priority as a wealth builder is to make sure that you're pouring some amount of money every month into something that's going to make you wealthier over time, right? So when you're budgeting how much money you have every month, the first thing you take out of that budget is whatever percentage you want to put into your investments in your pre-existing assets, right? Your stocks, your real estate, whatever it is, right? And then at that point, if you want to go for it and get the kind of car you want to get something fancy, something expensive, even something a little bit gaudy, go for it. Just make sure you prioritize first, because where a lot of people screw up, or I don't say screw up, but they make the mistake is that, like when we talk about things like the $5 a day investing plan, right? Where literally by investing approximately $140 a month, you can make sure your child has a couple $100,000 by the time they're 30. A lot of people won't take the time to put that $140 a month in for their children, but they'll spend $600 a month for their car note, right? So it doesn't make sense. It's okay for you to have a car note of whatever size you want. What doesn't make sense is for you to spend 4 times more on your car note than you put into your wealth building, because whatever you pour into, wealth grows I can show you mathematical equations that will show you that wealth grows the way plants and flowers grow. All of the equations we use in finance, when I was getting my PhD and we were talking, when we were doing mathematical, it's all a bunch of mathematics, constantly math. All those equations derived from biology. All those equations were being used by the biologists across campus. In finance, we just borrow those equations. So basically, wealth grows the way a tree grows, the way an animal grows, the way a newborn baby grows. Like you can literally write down a mathematical equation for how much a baby grows in a certain amount of time based on certain variables. So you can also have an equation for how money grows based on certain variables. And what you'll find is that the rate of growth of that money typically comes down to a couple of factors, actually. It's how much are you pouring into it? How long are you allowing it to grow? And how fast is it growing, just as a general rate? So putting aside time and the rate of growth, what you pour into it is going to determine exactly what you get out of it. So one of the things that you never want to do as a wealth builder is get caught in the psychological trap of sitting here wondering, why do I not have any wealth? Why do I not have any wealth? Without asking yourself the important question, which is, have I been pouring into my wealth? Have you been pouring into it? Have you been investing consistently? Have you been learning, spending time getting better at financial literacy? I'm not judging that, but there's a direct connection. If you're a farmer and you want to have a big harvest, you can immediately go back and look at how many seeds you planted, and that will tell you about what your harvest is going to be. So that's the way I would kind of look at it. So I don't think that it's a matter. I hear people that will say that that it's bad to buy Starbucks and or to spend money at the club or to go shopping at the mall, and you don't have any wealth because you like to buy stuff. I don't think that's true at all. I think you should enjoy your money. In fact, studies show that when you get older, the thing you remember the most is not material things you bought, it's experiences that you have. So things like taking a trip that you remember for the rest of your life, that's going to stick with you a lot of times a lot more than just buying another pair of shoes or buying a bunch of clothes. So do those things, do all those things. Just make sure you eat your vegetables before you eat your dessert. That means make sure you're investing. And then at that point, enjoy your money, do whatever you want. And if you don't have enough money to do the things you want to do, what you may also want to invest in is the knowledge and the networking to increase your income. There is a lot of money out here. There's a lot of money out here for people that know how to make money. So if I'm really trying to figure out how to make more money, what I want to do is get into spaces with other people that can help me get ideas. I can't tell you how many times I have seen people come up with $1 million idea based on something very small. They might have one conversation or sit with one person, and suddenly the light bulb comes on, or something that you try just takes off. There was something I was watching on the internet called Gracie's Corner. My brother, my niece and nephew were watching it, and then my goddaughter, she had a new baby, and her kids were watching Gracie's Corner. And Gracie's Corner was created by a father and a daughter, and they do these really cool videos where they're teaching kids ABCs and stuff like that. The animation is extremely basic. It looks like something they maybe had done on Fiverr. And the music is nice because the father knows how to get on the computer and make a nice beat. And then they make these little really basic songs that help you learn your ABCs. So Gracie's Corner is probably, if they sold that brand, they could probably sell it to Netflix or something for 10 million, 20 million, $30 million. And if you break it down, if you reverse engineer what they're doing, it's not super complex, right? And I love it. I think it's wonderful. And so I wouldn't overthink it, but I would also prioritize sort of being in those spaces as much as you're in the space of just sort of doing a job and getting paid for your job every day. That's not really where you're supposed to be. That's not where you're going to get your best long-term economic benefit. Okay. All right. So let me, if you have a question, you can put your question in the Q&A section. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and rapid fire answer a few questions. Now, someone asked me to go through the different AI stocks that I recommend. If you go to boycewatkins.com and get that list of AI stocks that I picked, I'm not going to go through each one. I'll just say that I think I did have a brief description on some of them, but basically some of them are companies like NVIDIA. NVIDIA make the best AI chip that's out there right now. And there are a few other companies. I can't remember if it's Microsoft, Micron Technologies, and a few others. So if you go to boycewatkins.com, the list is there. And I think I put a little description of what I like about those stocks. Let's see. Pauline is asking, can you recommend an equivalent company or person in the UK who's doing similar work like you? You know what? I really don't know exactly. There was one guy I met from the UK. I can't remember his name. Ian. I think it's Ian something. I don't have his last name, but I really liked him. He was very much into independent thinking as a Black person and wealth building and security and just all these great things I think Black people need to understand. But I don't remember his last name. So I wish I could. I wish I could name somebody, but I can't think of anyone at this time. So sorry for that. Alex Damas, would you consider yourself our last line of defense for the Black community with this school? No, I do not. I think that there are lots of smart people out here, and I think that I've had enough time to do this work. Now, in the very beginning, I was kind of alone. There weren't a lot of people doing what I was doing. Now, a lot of people are out here doing it and doing extremely well. My favorite is probably Julian Gordon, who just is, so good at what he does. And he's such a great friend. I have so much admiration for him. I don't know the guys that Earn Your Leisure, but I love what they're doing. I think it's great. I love to see Black men, kind of really earning our true spot in the hierarchy of intelligence and wealth building. You've got a lot of other smart people. Lene Javette she just finished her doctorate, and she is an awesome business development specialist. There are so many good people out here now that are doing really good stuff. The Wall Street Trapper, Andre C. Hatchett, just Chris Senegal is actually gentrifying. He's doing Black gentrification, something I've been talking about for about a decade in terms of us using gentrification as a tool for Black empowerment, as opposed to seeing it as something that's just, white people always winning. And there are a few others. I can't think of everybody. D1 is really good. D1 actually is cool because he's one of the few rappers I know that does really good songs about not just good values that are beneficial to the community, but also he has a couple songs about finance. One's called No Car Note, which is a really good song. The other one's called I Pay Sally Maybach. And so yeah, there are just some really good people out there. So I don't think I'm the last line of defense of anything. If I died tomorrow, I'd have complete faith and confidence that the Black economic revolution would continue for the next 100 years. Like I think that in 50 years, I think Black people are going to be known. Certain Black people, B1 people, not everybody, right? We're going to be known for a lot of things, but one thing that we're going to also be known for is going to be known for wealth building. They're going to be people that are going to go, your kids, grandkids in their generation. Somebody's going to get out here and create $1 trillion company. They're going to be people out here just doing amazing things and actually putting the Black community at the top of the priority list, as opposed to us being kind of a side note or a footnote. That's what I look forward to. And I know that that's going to occur. All right. Maurice Terrell says, what do you think about the BOTS ETF? Okay, BOTS ETF. Let me see here. Let me look it up. The BOTS ETF, Global X Robotics and Artificial Intelligence. I like it already. I think that's such a great industry. It looks like it's had a hell of a run. This stock is this year it's gone up 16%. It explores innovation-focused megatrend ETFs. Let's see here. Wait, let me read more. Let me see if I can read a description. I'm clicking on this now, so give me 1 second here. All right. The investment objective is that it seeks to track the investment results of an index composed of developed and emerging market companies that can benefit from the long-term growth and innovation in robotics, technologies, and artificial intelligence. Okay. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think this is in that Cathie Woodish kind of space. I think Cathie Wood is smart. Cathie Wood is smart because she understands kind of where the world is going, and she has a lot of patience and consistency. And so I think that investing in the future is a good way to go. Again, there's that list of AI stocks on boycewatkins.com, but also I like BOTS, BOTZ. It looks like a solid ETF. So maybe a little bit in there. Don't, when you invest, don't put all your money in one place though. Like, don't get caught up in one stock that you don't realize that there are thousands of them out there. So you want to spread your money out. So always keep that in mind. Mark Irving says, following your tutelage, we're starting a family investment club. Awesome. I'm researching betterinvesting.org for organization and structure. I'm researching myiclub.com for investment club accounting. Are these good entities? I don't know these particular entities, Mark. I do know that if you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, there is a training I put together on how to form a family investment club. So just log in, use your login at theblackstockmarketprogram.com, theblackstockmarketprogram.com. And there is a training in there on how to form a family investment club. And if you can't find it, email the support team. The support team email is support@theblackbusinessschool.com, and they can actually help you. Support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Now, Chanel is also in the chat, and Chanel can guide you to whatever you're looking for also. All right, let me see. Next question. Sam Miller says, Dr. Watkins, what are your thoughts on defense stocks given the current geopolitical situation? I think defense, if I was to invest more in defense, I would think of it more so in terms of just defense as an industry, as opposed to trying to react to what you're seeing in the news, because the market's pretty quick and what they call efficient. So the stock market's kind of already reacting to whatever you're reading about the tensions between the US and China and all that. Defense contractors just tend to do well under all economic circumstances. The US invests so much money into defense. I think we spend more money on defense than China spends on its whole entire economy, or at least that's the way it was a few years ago. I don't know if that's still true. So I think that a good ETF that kind of blends together some of these big defense companies, Boeing and Lockheed Martin and stuff like that, and just kind of rock it out like that, as opposed to trying to pick specific companies. But I think that the defense industry is fine. I think it's as good as other industries out here. Sam Miller says, good morning, Dr. Watkins. What is the max percentage of any one stock or holding a person should maintain in their portfolio? I wouldn't put more than, mutual fund managers have a rule that they don't put more than 5% of their money in any one stock. You could loosen that up to maybe 10%, but when you get above 10%, you're kind of going into risky territory. When people go broke, whenever you hear about somebody just losing all their money as an investor, it's typically because they're under diversified. It's because they put all their money in one place or put all their eggs in one basket, and that basket broke. So never get so caught up or so enamored with any type of investment that you just put everything you've got into that one place. That is an absolute recipe for a complete disaster, and that's a great way to lose everything. So I don't want you to lose everything. So don't do that. All right. So so let's see. The next question is, let me see. Okay, what's the next question here? The next question is Austin. Austin says, can you review my financials? I need help making fast money, optimizing my investments. You know what? I don't do that many one-on-ones, Austin, but if you did want to do a one-on-one, Chanel's in the chat. She can actually give you a link or a URL or someplace you can go, or you can email support@theblackbusinessschool.com and make that request. But just so you know, because my time is so tight, there is a fee for one-on-one consultations. It's not a trivial fee either, but it is available on a limited basis. So if you're interested, feel free to take a look. But I can't do a lot of one-on-ones just because I got so much work to do. It's insane. Gwen, in 2000, I invested in the stock market. I did not pull my money out. However, I lost 50-60% of the money in my IRA as it just disappeared. We're told not to take money out no matter what, but you can be wiped out completely. I know because it happened to me. So what does one do? That's a great question, Gwen. Here's the deal. If you look at, if your IRA or 401k is properly diversified and you're in different mutual funds, your money's kind of spread out, there's never been a time in the history of the stock market where everything dipped and did not come back to its original point and then beyond. You know, I would never, I mean, you can't, if somebody said, you know, hey, I put my money in the stock market and in 2000, I lost 50% of my portfolio, it never recovered. I would need to see that portfolio because that doesn't sound right. Because if I show you, you know, in any index in the stock market, the S&P 500, the Dow, whatever, and you show me any of the dips, the biggest dips in history, the Great Depression, you'll always see that it dipped really far and then it will come back to where it was before and then go beyond that point. So you probably recovered everything. You probably have more. I can't imagine you not having more now than you did back then. So maybe something was taken out, or maybe you were under diversified. So so if you have ownership in say one or two stocks and they go down 50% and never recover, that can happen. That happens all the time. That's why you spread your money out, because across the market wide, any index where you are invested in at least 23 different companies, that's the number. It was 22.5 when I was in graduate school. 23 different companies. That means that your chances of you losing everything or not recovering or whatever is very, very low. And the other thing too is you don't want to have sort of too much of your money in any one of those companies. Sam Miller says, what is the optimal dollars to invest to have an E-Trade, Robinhood, TD Ameritrade account? I don't think there's any optimal amount of money. I think it depends on the person. But the key idea is that, if you own, say, 10 different stocks, I think a good rule of thumb would be to say, I'm not going to let any one stock have more than 10% of the total money. If you do it that way, then you're good. Think of it like you got 10 kids. No one child should be eating 80% of the food in the house. Make sense? Okay. Damon says, Dr. Boyce, you probably have already answered this somewhere, but are there any particular companies that you suggest that I open up a stock trust for my niece and nephew? Open up a stock trust. Yeah, well, I know that a trust is something you can set up, with a trust attorney, or they'll probably do it yourself, situations with Rocket Lawyer and stuff like that. Trusts are very good as entities to protect your assets. Now, if you're talking about opening up a custodial account, I know Stash has custodial accounts. There are other brokerages that have them too. I don't think Robinhood does. I haven't seen anything with Robinhood, but I think Stash does. So a custodial account means that it's officially their money. It's not your money anymore. I would be really careful about that because I'm not a big believer in giving a lot of money to children because children, their brains are not even developed. And you just, I don't know. Like you look at John Morant that plays for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's 23 and he's got the $200 million contract, and he's not old and mature enough to know how much money he's wasting by acting a fool, right? And he won't realize it until he's probably about 45, and then he'll be running around